Well, I think that's whole ascent, and I'm going to take that back to what I wanted to share. Um, the whole thing is we need to live above the sin nature. And in that, so we got to believe that we can live above the sin nature. Or how else will we be to that place where we bring others out of the sin nature? So you can kind of see how that perpetually is a spiral down or a spiral up. When I look as I walked with the Lord over time, the Lord would show me something I needed to change. So in that point of duration, when I wasn't smart enough just to turn it over, he would leave that condemnation just be there, or the enemy would bring that in, or conviction. You can't really tell at that point which is which, but you know what you're supposed to do. It isn't like you don't know what you're supposed to do. You just resist it. So in that place, condemnation has a power. But as soon as you make the decision to leave that thing behind, one is it's already forgiven, and two, it's lost its power. So that power of sin is only during that duration that you refuse to go into that full obedience. Now that don't mean you're not going to ever fall again, because we do. But we live above it, and there's one term that I can apply it so many ways it always comes back. I'm getting stronger. What that means is I have more resistance to whatever that is. So it's going to become less and less frequent. It's going to have less and less influence. And that we should continually see that. Slowly but surely.
That's at that part of what that verse was, that he causes us to approach the throne. It's that urge and that need and it's that desire that's deep within us that keeps drawing us, even in spite of the failures of falling. It's that thing that keeps pulling us up out of the hole again and keeps drawing us to come into him, you know. So it's that thing of dealing with an imperfect nature, and we need to seek his nature more to be fully in it. So but he always leaves the door wide open for us for the desire to be greater, to overcome it. So that's cool.
In that whole question of, overcoming sinful desires or issues, what I found was the most amazing thing is that as you go closer in relationship with Christ, and as you see him working in your life and working in you, all of a sudden you realize what life really is and the power of his life. And it's something which is completely outside of our normal human experience. You never experience selfless love in relationship to anybody else. There's always that final withholding, you always are withholding something inside of yourself. You never trust completely any human being. I never did, and I don't think anybody ever did. And so that background feeling of, I can't really trust, is always part of the fallen nature, I think. Distrust was what Adam presented to God. I don't trust you, I don't believe you, what you say is not true. I cannot trust you. But in the relationship to him, all of a sudden you encounter something which is just completely new. And as that grows in my life, the other side becomes less and less appealing. These temptations of the devil, he comes up with this thing and that thing. You say, this is just, I don't want it. I mean, compare Christ and compare this. There's no comparison. And it takes some time, because there are these old emotions, these old affections try to draw you into this thing, because in the past it was a source of enjoyment. But you realize it's just a shadow from the past. And you realize that not out of your mind. I've told myself that in the past I've read, great saints, I read their experiences, and I said, this is what I want to be. But it was all in my mind. I didn't have the experience of living in contact with Christ. But now it becomes real, because now Christ is real to me. And I go through, his dealings and the relationship with him in a very intimate and personal way, day by day, and I'm changed from the inside out. I'm a different person. And now this other stuff, I know it's just a shadow. And just let it die away, let it fall away. Even though there is still a pull at times, I say, no, I don't want this. Compare this and that. Death and life. I always say, this is the field of death. This is the field of life. I choose life. But without that experience of Christ working in you and working with you and dealing with you and being your friend and being your beloved and coming close to you, the world still has its pull. You can't pull away. It's not in our strength to do it, I don't think. You can make up your mind and have all sorts of good intentions, and you can read your Bible and you can worship, you do all sorts of things, but nothing will work. It's only the reality of Him working with you and working in you that empowers you.
And that's why people become the Lord speakers then, because they had a relationship with death. They had a relationship with the father of lies, but not the father of the author of life. And so when Jesus says, I never knew you, he never knew them, because he can only be about life. He's not the maker of death. He can only be the author of life. So, people say, I went out there and I did all these great works and we built these great temples and blah, 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 but it was all built by man with that underlying death. There are enough woes in the Bible to tell you about those who build by that power of death. There's always the blood of humans involved, not the blood of the Lamb. So when we are pursuing this thing of life, then that's where it's always based on the blood of the Lamb. It's always based on the life that he gave that's going to cause more and more life to flourish. Be awesome.